Chosen one, seal this message away from every set of eyes around you. Not because it's a secret, because it's a transmission. And transmissions of this magnitude are distorted when they pass through the wrong frequencies. What is being released this Friday was not designed for a room full of people. It was designed for the singular soul who is already awake enough to receive it. That soul is you. And the fact that you are reading these words right now, in this moment, is not a glitch in the algorithm. That is a summons. Something is about to break open in your life. And I need you to sit with that word, break. Because what God is about to do in your world is not going to look like a blessing. Not at first. It is going to look like a disruption. Plans you spent months building are going to shift without warning. So people you trusted are going to react in ways that surprise you. Things that felt permanent are going to wobble. Structures you relied on are going to crack at the base. And everyone around you is going to panic. But you will not. Because the Holy Spirit brought you to this message before the storm arrived. And that changes everything about how you stand inside it. I know what the last 72 hours have felt like. There has been a strange tension in the atmosphere. Not loud, not dramatic, just heavy. Like something is pressing down on the air around you, slow and deliberate. Maybe you have been waking up around 3 in the morning this week, not from a nightmare, just suddenly conscious, staring at the ceiling with a feeling you cannot name. Somewhere between anticipation and dread. Or maybe you have been moving through your days normally on the outside, but carrying a quiet unease on the inside, a low hum telling you that something is coming, that the ground beneath your life is about to shift, and you are not sure if that terrifies you or if some deeper part of you has been waiting for it. That is not anxiety. That is awareness. The enemy is pressing hard on you right now for one reason, and one reason only. He knows what Friday holds. It all begins to shift at the end of this week. The stalling, the silence, the feeling of being suspended between what was and what is coming. But here is what you have to understand. The disruption that is coming is not random. It is not chaos finding you by accident. What is about to shake your world is surgical precision from heaven. Every piece that falls was never meant to survive this season. Every structure that cracks was built on a foundation that could not hold what you are becoming. And every piece that remains after Friday, that is your real ground. That is what God kept. That is what was always supposed to carry you forward. Think back to this week, to that moment where something inside you wanted to react. Maybe it was a conversation that went sideways. Maybe it was news that unsettled you. Maybe it was a silence from someone who should have spoken. And instead of responding, you held it. You stayed still. You absorbed the pressure without releasing it outward. You did not know it then, but that restraint was not weakness. That was the training. That was heaven preparing your posture for what Friday is going to demand of you. You did not find this message by accident. The algorithm did not deliver this to you. The Spirit of the Most High did. This is a divine appointment, set in motion long before today, engineered to reach you before the event and not after it, so that when the disruption comes, you already carry the interpretation inside you. Stay until the very last word of this message, because in the next few minutes, I am going to reveal exactly what this Friday truly holds and why the timing is not accidental. I am going to show you why the disruption is a divine precision and not a punishment. And at the end, I am going to give you the declaration that locks your posture in place, so that when everything around you is shaking, you are the one thing that does not move. Do not close this. But your future self is on the other side of what is being said here. If you leave before the end, you walk into Friday with the wrong set of eyes. My name is Joseph Bill. I have spent years studying the hidden architecture of spiritual warfare. The attacks, the awakenings, the setups disguised as setbacks. And I have walked over 10,000 chosen ones through the exact kind of threshold you are standing at right now. If this is your first time here, subscribe and turn on notifications immediately. Not because I need the numbers, because what I am releasing next week was written for the battle you do not see coming yet. Make sure you are there to receive it. Here is what the enemy has been whispering in the silence. He has been telling you that the instability you feel is your fault. He has been replaying the moments where you pulled back, where you chose rest over effort, where you let something go instead of fighting for it. He has been telling you that because of those moments, Friday is going to be a consequence and not a blessing. He has been building a case inside your own mind that the disruption coming is divine correction for what you failed to do. That is a lie, and it is a precise lie, constructed specifically to make you hesitate at the exact moment you need to stand firm. Here is what the scripture actually says. Romans 8:28 declares that all things work together for good to those who are called according to his purpose. All things, not the comfortable things, not the things that look like blessings from the outside. All things, including the disruption, including the shift, including the crumbling. Every single piece of what is happening right now is being coordinated for an outcome the enemy does not have the authority to stop. You are not in a cycle. You are in a conclusion. The heaviness you feel is not the weight of something being taken from you. It is the weight of something being completed. The pressure building around your life right now is not punishment pressing down. It is finality pulling through. You are not starting over. You are finishing. This Friday is not falling apart. It is being rearranged. And only your eyes, awake, aligned, and prepared, can see it for what it truly is. You've been prepared for this longer than you know. And before we go any further, if you want to go deeper into what God is doing in this season of your life, there is a guide that was written specifically for moments like this one. And it's called The Chosen One's Blueprint, and it's available now. The link is in the description. Get it, because what we're about to walk through will hit differently when you have something to return to. Now, let's talk about what's really happening. Most people who feel the kind of shift you've been sensing lately make the same mistake. They assume that because something feels turbulent, something must have gone wrong. It's an almost instinctual reaction, like a ship's crew in a storm assuming a navigational error rather than simply encountering the vast, unpredictable forces of the ocean. They trace back through their decisions looking for the error, meticulously re-examining every step, every choice point, every whispered prayer. They replay the conversations in their minds, dissecting words and intentions, second-guess the choices they made with a genuine heart, and begin to quietly wonder if maybe they moved too fast, like a sprinter outrunning their own breath, or trusted too much, like a child giving away a precious secret. Perhaps, they silently conclude, they believed for something that wasn't actually theirs to believe for. A promise too grand, a vision too audacious for someone like them. And in that frantic searching, in that backward glance steeped in regret and self-recrimination, they miss the profound, often disruptive thing that's standing right in front of them, actively shaping their destiny. They are so busy looking for what broke that they fail to see what is being built. The barrier isn't doubt, not at the superficial level where we typically assign blame. Oh, doubt certainly plays a role, a corrosive acid that eats away at confidence, but it is merely a symptom. The real foundational barrier is misinterpretation. You have been reading heaven's activity, the very hand of God moving in your life, through the wrong lens. It's like trying to discern a finely tuned orchestra through a wall of static, or attempting to read a sacred text while wearing darkened glasses. What God has been sending as a clear, precise signal, a divine broadcast meant only for you, you've been receiving as nothing more than chaotic noise, a jumble of unrelated incidents and unwelcome disruptions. What he's been using as precision, a clearing of old pathways, a deliberate rearranging of your landscape, a surgical and intentional removal of what no longer serves his highest purpose. You've been experiencing as profound and irredeemable loss. And because no one around you has been able to name it differently, to offer a spiritual lexicon for these turbulent times, the misread has gone uncorrected, allowed to fester and grow into a debilitating narrative. Until now. Think of Elijah in the wilderness, a man whose story is a stark reminder of how quickly even the most powerful spiritual giants can succumb to misinterpretation. This is a prophet who had just called fire from the sky, a visible, undeniable manifestation of divine power that consumed the sacrifice, the wood, the stones, and even the water in the trench. He had stood alone on a mountain, Mount Carmel, against 450 false prophets of Baal, a solitary figure against a multitude, and won by divine power, utterly vindicating the Lord God of Israel. He had seen the impossible happen in real time. On a miracle of such magnitude, it shifted the spiritual climate of an entire nation. And then, days later, after a threatening word from Queen Jezebel, this same man was under a juniper tree, consumed by despair, asking God to let him die. His plea wasn't because the enemy had decisively defeated him in battle or through some overt attack, but because Elijah had utterly misread his own profound exhaustion, both physical and spiritual, as divine abandonment. He thought the deafening silence after such a thunderous victory meant something sacred had been revoked, that God had simply withdrawn his presence and his promise. He confused a season of necessary restoration, a divine pause meant for healing and replenishment, for a season of painful rejection. And God, in that pivotal moment, didn't rebuke him with harsh words or theological lectures. He didn't demand an explanation for his despair. Instead, he fed him twice. An angel brought him bread baked on hot stones and a jar of water. Because what Elijah needed before the next monumental movement, before his next assignment, wasn't a reprimand or a lesson in faith. It was enough physical and spiritual strength, enough basic provision to make the arduous journey ahead. You are standing in that same wilderness right now, perhaps not under a juniper tree, but in a spiritual space of profound transition and disorientation. And let this truth settle deep within your spirit. What's coming this Friday, the impending disruption, the unsettling shift you sense, isn't punishment. It is, in its purest, most divine form, provision disguised in pressure. And it is the very fuel you need for the next leg of your journey, delivered in a package that might feel heavy, might feel constraining, but is ultimately designed to propel you forward. The first, most crucial thing you have to understand is that God does not dismantle what He intends to keep. When you watch something begin to shift, or loosen its grip, or even completely come undone around you, be it a relationship, a career path, a long-held dream, or even a sense of your own identity, the most human and instinctual reaction is to grab it, to cling to it with all your might. We desperately try to hold it in place, to restore it to what it was, to rewind the tape to a more comfortable, predictable time. We fear the void, the empty space where familiarity once resided. But there are structures in your life, unseen architectures of your existence, that were only ever meant to be scaffolding. They were temporary frames, meticulously erected to support the construction of something much greater, much more enduring. Built for a season, a specific phase of growth and development, they were never designed for a lifetime. And the Most High, in His infinite wisdom and unparalleled precision, knows exactly when the scaffolding has done its job. He knows the precise moment it has served its purpose, supported the initial build, and now needs to come down so that the magnificent, true building, the divine masterpiece that is your authentic self and purpose, can finally be seen in all its glory, unhindered and unobscured. What crumbles, shifts, or comes down this week was scaffolding. What remains, solid and unshaken, and is the true foundation of your life, deeply rooted in His unwavering plan for you. And you will not know which is which. You will not discern the temporary from the eternal until you stop frantically trying to hold everything up, until you release your grip on what God is intentionally allowing to fall away. But here's where it goes deeper, far beyond a simple analogy of construction. Because it's not just about what's being removed from your life, it's about why the removal feels so acutely personal, as if the very fabric of your being is being unstitched. The reason the disruption feels so targeted, so precise, so much like it's aimed directly at you, is because it is. But not by the enemy, not by malice or some cosmic accident. It is targeted by divine design. Heaven is surgical in its approach. Oh, it does not operate with blunt instruments or random acts of chaos. God doesn't scatter His intentions or His interventions carelessly. He selects with purposeful, deliberate intent. And what is being selected out of your story right now are precisely the things that would have competed with your clarity, that would have obstructed your vision and diluted your power in the next vital chapter of your life. These are the subtle, often insidious, competitors for your true calling. Perhaps they are people who, though they may mean well, would have pulled your attention away from your divine alignment, draining your emotional and spiritual reserves with their needs or their doubts. Or situations that, while appearing to offer comfort or opportunity, would have demanded your energy in the wrong direction, leading you down detours that only postponed your true path. They could be structures in your life, old habits, limiting beliefs, even certain comfort zones that looked stable and secure from the outside, but were silently, imperceptibly draining you of your life force, your joy, your very essence. You couldn't see it from the inside. You had adjusted to the insidious weight of it, the constant subtle drag. It's like living in a room with a slowly decreasing oxygen level. You adjust to the new normal. You stop feeling the deprivation because you've been in it too long. Your senses dulled. So God, in His profound love and foresight, is changing the room entirely. He is shifting the entire environment so that you can breathe freely, see clearly, and step into the unburdened space He has prepared for you. And what's coming next, after this divine rearrangement, will likely surprise you, perhaps even shock you, because it always does when we finally gain the necessary distance and perspective to see who and what we've been accommodating, what compromises we've allowed to become our normal, and what limiting beliefs we've permitted to dictate our lives. There is a voice in your life, an internal narrator, that has been speaking to you consistently in the language of caution. It sounds so wise, so prudent, so responsible. It references the past with an almost uncanny accuracy, pulling up every misstep, every disappointment, every instance of betrayal. It uses real, verifiable experiences as evidence, crafting a compelling narrative of why you should retreat, why you should hold back. It whispers things like, "Remember what happened last time," and "Don't get ahead of yourself. You know how this usually ends," and "Be careful who you trust. People always let you down." And you've been listening to it intently, reverently, because it sounds so much like discernment. It mimics the cadence of true spiritual wisdom. But discernment and fear are not the same thing, even when they shrewdly employ the same vocabulary, even when they cloak themselves in the same robes of prudence. Fear rehearses past wounds, reliving every hurt, every failure, every painful memory, and then cunningly calls that rehearsal wisdom. It's a closed loop of self-protection that ultimately prevents growth. Discernment, however, rooted in spiritual insight and divine guidance, moves you forward with eyes wide open, keenly aware of potential pitfalls, but ultimately trusting the path. One looks back, constantly fixated on what has been lost or what could go wrong based on history. The other looks through, seeing past the immediate obstacles to the larger purpose, guided by a higher vision. And if you're honest with yourself, truly, unflinchingly honest, willing to confront the subtle saboteur within, you know which voice has been louder, more insistent, and more influential in your decisions lately. Stay with me, because what's coming next is the part that doesn't just explain the cycle. It's the key to breaking it, to shattering the invisible chains that have held you captive. You've been operating under an invisible agreement. It's not one you consciously signed. It's not a pact you would ever even claim if someone named it directly and plainly to you. But it is an agreement nonetheless, subtly yet profoundly written into the very fabric of your behavior, reflected in your consistent hesitation, evident in the vast and often agonizing gap between what you know you're divinely called to and what you've actually moved toward. The unspoken yet deeply influential agreement says, "I'll go when it's safe. I'll step forward only when there's undeniable, overwhelming confirmation. I'll trust when the path is perfectly clear, illuminated like a runway at midnight. And from a distance, or even from within, it feels so much like faith. It mimics the cautious, patient posture of faith, appearing to wait on God's perfect timing. But in truth, it is its very opposite, because real, active, a vibrant faith doesn't wait for absolute clarity before it moves. Rather, it moves, it takes the audacious step, and in that very motion, in that divine momentum, it receives the necessary clarity. Consider Abraham, our father of faith. He didn't know where he was going when God called him to leave his country and his kindred. He simply went. The destination was revealed en route, one step at a time, not in advance on a detailed itinerary. He left Ur not knowing precisely where he would pitch his next tent, but knowing who was leading him. And every single day you wait for the full picture, for every detail to be meticulously laid out before you take that crucial first step, is another day the picture stays folded, its beauty and its revelation hidden from your grasp. Breaking that agreement, dissolving that invisible pact of conditional movement, is not about suddenly becoming reckless or foolishly abandoning prudence. On the contrary, it's about recognizing that the quality of your waiting has fundamentally changed. There is a profound spiritual difference between the wait of preparation and the wait of avoidance. One is active, purposeful, and dynamic. It's a season of intense internal building, a process of divine pruning, a careful and intentional positioning for what's ahead. It's like a seed waiting in the dark soil, actively germinating, gathering strength, preparing to burst forth. The other, however, is passive, stagnant, and ultimately self-defeating. It's a cycle of stalling, an endless rehearsal of fears, an elaborate strategy for managing anxiety rather than confronting it. But it's procrastination dressed up as patience. And if you track back through the last few months or even years of your life with spiritual honesty and self-awareness, you can intimately feel which one it's truly been. That raw, courageous awareness, that sudden, stark realization of the truth, that, beloved one, is the beginning of the shift, the first tremor of true transformation. And this leads us to something most people miss entirely, something buried deep beneath layers of self-protection and unspoken pain. The critical matter of what you've actually been protecting. When we are deeply afraid of losing something, whether it's a relationship, a status, a comfort, or even a cherished self-image, we instinctively stop moving freely. Our spiritual gait becomes stiff, our actions constrained. We start calculating every single step, every potential interaction, every bold declaration, based on what it might cost us, what we might lose. We become guarded with our spiritual gifts, hesitant to fully unleash their power. We become overly careful with our divinely implanted boldness, allowing it to atrophy from disuse. We become strategic in ways that, paradoxically, shrink us, making us smaller than the expansive beings God created us to be. And from the outside, to the casual observer, this cautious, measured behavior might even look like maturity, like wisdom earned through experience. But inside, in the quiet chambers of your own heart, you know it's something far more poignant and debilitating. It's grief wearing a meticulously tailored suit. You've been grieving something you haven't fully named, haven't fully processed, and haven't fully honored with your tears and your honesty. Perhaps it's a version of your life that didn't happen, a beautiful dream that dissolved before your eyes, or a relationship that didn't hold, crumbling despite your earnest efforts, or a door that slammed shut with an echoing finality before you could ever truly understand why. And because that grief was never fully acknowledged, never deeply processed, never released into the healing hands of God, it became an invisible, insidious weight you carried into every new room, every new opportunity, every new connection. It subtly colored your expectations, tainting them with past disappointments. It made you brace for loss, preparing for the worst, before you had even truly received the new gift heaven was trying to place in your hands. And without even fully realizing it, or through this desperate act of self-preservation, you began protecting yourself from the very things heaven was actively trying to hand you, the very blessings destined for your life. Consider the prophet Jeremiah, a powerful illustration of this human tendency to self-disqualify. He was told by God himself, even before his birth, that he had been set apart, consecrated, and appointed as a prophet to the nations. Imagine the weight, the honor, the sheer magnitude of such a divine predestiny. And yet, his first, almost immediate human response was to name everything that, in his own estimation, made him utterly unqualified. He pointed to his youth, his perceived inability to speak eloquently or persuasively, his overwhelming sense of inadequacy compared to such a monumental task. God's response, however, was direct, immediate, and divinely corrective. Do not say, "I am only a youth." Do not define yourself by what you perceive as limitation, by your human frailties, because my call, my divine decree over your life, has already superseded your self-assessment, your earthly qualifications, your every doubt. The word that's in your mouth, the language you use to describe yourself and your circumstances, truly matters. The label you place on yourself, whether spoken aloud or whispered in the secret chambers of your heart, carries immense spiritual weight. And if you've been speaking small in secret, if your internal dialogue has been a relentless loop of unworthiness, cleverly dressed up as humility, making excuses for why you can't fully receive, then the full, glorious declaration of heaven over your life cannot land in its complete power and purpose, and because you keep subtly, silently refusing to receive it. You are resisting the very grace that seeks to empower you. This, beloved one, is where the real transformation truly begins. And this is also precisely where it gets profoundly confrontational, challenging not just your external circumstances, but your very internal operating system. Because most people at this point in this message are nodding. They're feeling it. They're in profound agreement, a resonance stirring deep within their spirit. And they'll likely leave this moment feeling moved, perhaps even inspired, which, though beautiful and necessary, is not the same as being fundamentally changed. Feeling and shifting are distinct, separate spiritual phenomena. And the vast, often deceptive, a gap between feeling and truly shifting is precisely where most people stay stuck for years, caught in a cycle of repeated insights without corresponding action. You can feel the undeniable truth of every word spoken over you, experience a wave of profound emotional and spiritual affirmation, and still, the very moment that feeling fades, you can slip back into the exact same patterns, the old habits of hesitation, the familiar narratives of doubt. Why? Because the feeling was never the transformation itself. The feeling was merely the invitation, the divine spark, the catalyst. The actual, enduring transformation resides in the courageous decision that immediately follows that feeling. It is the decision to act before the emotion wears off, before the initial surge of inspiration dissipates like morning mist. It is the conscious, an intentional choice to move before the familiar, insidious fear returns to reclaim its territory. It is the unwavering resolve to say yes, to step forward, before the logical mind, with its endless array of what-ifs and buts, talks you back into the comfortable yet stagnant prison of waiting. Coming up, the one thing most people avoid naming, the ultimate unspoken truth. But it's the key, the master lock, to everything that follows. Here's what nobody truly wants to hear, the uncomfortable truth that shines a spotlight into the most hidden corners of the heart. The disruption you are sensing and experiencing this Friday is not just external. The divine rearranging, the intentional shifting, is not only happening in your circumstances, in your relationships, in your career path, or in your physical environment. God is also profoundly, meticulously rearranging something deep within you. And that interior movement, that seismic shift in how you fundamentally see yourself, how you genuinely receive love and affection, how you authentically hold and wield divine authority, is, without question, the hardest part of this entire process. Because you can, with relative ease, watch your plans change and frame it as God's sovereign will, a necessary detour. You can observe relationships shift and call it divine pruning, a painful but essential removal of dead branches. But when God begins to touch, to reshape, to redefine how you see yourself, that feels intensely personal in a way that leaves nowhere to hide. It reaches into those quiet, guarded places you've kept secret, the tender wounds you've shielded from even your own gaze. And it asks the uncomfortable, fundamental questions you've been skillfully postponing for years, perhaps even decades. It requires you to be brutally honest about the stories you've been telling yourself, the intricate self-narratives about why you're not further along, why you're not fully loved, why you haven't yet stepped into the magnificent fullness of what you inherently know you carry, what you were born to embody. And beneath all of that, beneath the layers of fear, beneath the heavy cloak of unprocessed grief, beneath the invisible agreement of conditional faith, and beneath the deceptive guise of false humility, there is a single hidden root that none of those limiting factors would survive without. This is the part you didn't expect, the twist in the narrative, the revelation that pierces through all prior assumptions. The singular, most potent thing that's truly been blocking you, holding you back from your divine inheritance, is not the enemy's assignment against you, though such assignments certainly exist. It's not the people who hurt you, though their actions left scars. It's not the weight of your past failures, nor is it your perceived lack of resources or opportunities. Those are all real challenges, but they are not the root. The root, the hidden, pervasive, sustaining root of all the delay, all the hesitation, all the half-steps, is an unresolved, often subconscious question about whether you are actually worth what God said. Not whether God is real and sovereign, not whether His promises are true and eternal, but whether you, specifically you, with your unique history, are your undeniable failures, your quiet, vulnerable moments of profound self-doubt, your perceived flaws and imperfections, are truly the one the promise was actually made for. That is the question underneath the question. That is the insidious reason every breakthrough has arrived at your doorstep, only to be partially received, partially embraced, its full power never fully allowed to manifest. That is why you've gone 90% of the way, standing on the precipice of your destiny, only to inexplicably stop, to pull back, to subtly self-sabotage. Because somewhere, woven into the deepest architecture of your belief system, a persistent, almost imperceptible whisper has taken root. A lie that says someone more qualified, more deserving, more perfect is surely coming. And with a heart both aching and self-protective, but you've been subtly, silently leaving space for them, refusing to fully occupy the space God designed for you. Let me declare this truth over you with divine authority and unwavering certainty. There is no one more qualified coming. This was always for you. The calling was precise, specifically tailored to your unique blueprint, your intricate design, your very essence. The preparation was specific. Every challenge, every victory, every moment of wilderness and wonder meticulously crafted to forge you into the vessel capable of carrying this destiny. The disruption this Friday, the rearranging, the unsettling wobbling of your perceived stability, the natural human panic that may erupt around you while you are called to hold your sacred ground, all of it, every single detail, is the Most High God actively confirming, and not questioning, your divine assignment. The storm does not mean you were wrong to believe. It does not mean your faith was misplaced or your vision misguided. On the contrary, the storm, the turbulence, the atmospheric pressure means you are close enough to the destination, so profoundly near the fulfillment of your divine purpose that the very atmosphere around you has begun to change, to churn with the immense energy of what is about to manifest. It's the sound of a spiritual threshold being crossed, and when it passes, and let there be no doubt in your spirit, it will pass. For no storm sent by God to advance His purpose lasts forever. What remains will be unmistakably, undeniably, beautifully yours. And in that glorious unveiling, you will finally stop waiting for someone else to walk into the life heaven so painstakingly, so lovingly built for you. You will step into your own, fully, confidently, unequivocally. Place your hand on your heart right now. Feel the rhythm of life beating within you, a testament to God's enduring presence. And speak this with me. not just as a silent thought in your mind, but out loud, with conviction. Because what is declared with intention and faith in the natural echoes and reverberates with power in the spiritual realm, shifting realities. I release the question of my worth. I release the heavy burden of trying to earn what was freely given. I release the grief that made me brace against blessing, that hardened my heart against the very gifts heaven intended for me. I release every false agreement I made in seasons of fear, every secret vow of limitation, every pact of hesitation. For I break alignment with the voice that called me unqualified, with every lie that sought to diminish my divine identity. And I come into full, resounding agreement with what heaven declared over me before I was even formed, before time began. I am not waiting for a better, more perfect, more deserving version of myself to step forward. I step forward now, imperfect, present, whole, and utterly trusted by God. What is shifting and unsettling in my life right now is not punishment. It is sacred preparation. What is crumbling and falling away was never my true foundation. It was temporary scaffolding. And what remains, steadfast and unshaken, is exactly enough, precisely what is needed to build on. I will not hesitate. I will not shrink. I will not misread this divine rearranging as rejection or abandonment. And I am the chosen one this message was written for. And I walk into this Friday and everything beyond it in full, unshakable alignment with the purpose I was made for. It is done. If this message found you, it was not by accident. Share it with the one person who needs to stand still this week instead of falling apart. And the link to go deeper is in the description. The Chosen One's blueprint. For the moments when the message ends, but the journey continues. If this word stirred something in you, don't ignore it. Act on it. Send this video to another chosen one who needs to hear it, and help this message travel further. Every soul who steps inside brings another closer to the Father's call.